Michelle, come on up. So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Michelle Denogean, who was, when I first met Michelle, it would have been 10 years ago. When did you start at Roadster?
Yeah, it was almost 10 years ago.
10-ish, yeah. So 10 years ago at Roadster, she was a chief marketing officer at Roadster and grew it from, how big was it when you started?
Oh gosh, 15 people.
Okay, cool.
To a little, close to about 200 when we sold it to CDK Global.
Awesome, good. And before that, you were the CMO at Edmunds.
At Edmunds.
That's cool. So long storied auto tech history, great respect for her and what she was able to build with her influence at Roadster to a tremendous exit. And now the funny thing is she's got the band back together. That same team has started a new company. So she's kind of uniquely positioned to talk on this subject. She is launching a book, which will be out in...
Later this month.
Later this month. The best way to buy it is Amazon?
It will be Amazon.
It will be on Amazon, so you hear about that today. But specifically, she's got unique insight, earned insight about startups and the entrepreneurial mind. So with no further ado, let's have a round of applause for Michelle.
Thank you.
And the floor is yours.
All right, before I get started, could we also give a round of applause for the amazing startups that presented? Because that is so hard to do in front of a room like this. Okay. On to the bad news. According to the Bureau of Labor, 90% of startups will fail. That means with about a dozen people in this room that are running startups, only one of you will actually survive. So what is it that the select few have that the others don't? Sometimes it's like putting your money out into the ethers, right? Putting it into your business when the odds are going to be better if you were to go to the casino and put all of that money on red, if you think about it. So what is it that those select few have that the others don't? What is it that makes them different? What makes a company like this win over a company like that? What makes a company like this survive and thrive over a company like that? I don't know if anybody remembers that company anymore. It did actually exist. So when you really think about it, you've got to think about what are the reasons that startups fail. And CB Insights did a study back in 2021. They interviewed 50 startups that actually went out of business earlier that year. And they found that there are 3 primary reasons that startups fail. Can anybody guess what the first one is? Run out of money? Who said that? Yes. Lack of cash, right? They run out of money. If you don't have money, where do you go? You can't keep going. What about the second one? Anybody want to guess what the second one was? It is related. One of them is related to that. That's not the second one, though. Anybody else? Burnout. Another one on the list, related, but not the second one. Maybe sort of related. Yes, who said that? Gary. So product market fit, right? They can't gain conviction. They can't find enough customers that are willing to buy their product. And then the third one on the list, I think somebody said over here, at least there were a couple related, was that they had the wrong team. Now, these things may seem very, very obvious, I think, to most of us, right? It was easy for everybody to answer these questions. But this data brings up some interesting questions. What does it take to have product market fit, right? What do you need to do to accomplish that? How do you raise enough money so that you aren't just starting, but you also have enough runway to grow and scale? What does it take to do these things? When you really peel back the onion, it takes incredible talent to do these things. It takes people in order to make these things happen. And when you keep going down the list of things that were in that study, it was things like they were outcompeted, they had a flawed business model, maybe they didn't have a great product, right? all of these things can be avoided with the right people. Even something like timing, which isn't really directly related to people, can be predicted better by people, right? People. People are actually the root cause of startup failure. The rest of what we were just looking at are symptoms to that problem. So when you really understand this and you start to begin to internalize this, you realize that, wow, the answer is really easy. I just need great people. Easy, right? Duh. So, why is it that 9 out of 10 of us are still getting this wrong? If it was that easy, right? If it was that easy to have the team. And I would just say, because I don't know that you can read it, this is actually the Roadster team. I thought I'd throw this in here because this is my origins, and I'm back in auto, even though I'm not in auto right now. There is one person missing from this picture, though, and I think he is in this room. Maybe. Where's Amit? Amit! Just happened to not be there that day, but this was the Roadster team. So people are the root cause of startup failure. All we need to do is figure out how to have an amazing team. While everybody in this room has a gift, you guys all have an amazing superpower that makes you great at what you do. If you're a startup founder in this room, it's the one thing that made you amazing at starting your company. Maybe you're an innovator right here, right? Like Steve Jobs, who was able to find interesting problems and solve them in really creative ways. Maybe you're a builder like Jeff Bezos. He was able to really understand the data and build repeatable processes to scale and grow his company. Whatever your superpower is amazing to get you where you need to go. But a wise man, maybe Spider-Man, said, with great power comes great responsibility. And even Superman could be stopped by kryptonite. Every superpower has a dark side. It has a blind spot that you cannot see. It's the one thing that stops you from not only hiring the right people, but empowering them. Okay, so let's put this into practice. Let's give an example. By show of hands, who in this room thinks of themselves as an innovator? Where are my Steve Jobs, my Doc Browns? Okay. So as an innovator, you also found a problem that your customers have, and you built a solution in order to solve that problem. And you did. You solved that problem. You had customers that loved you. And of course you did in the very beginning, because innovators are beloved by their customers. But what happens as you have customers? Customer volume goes up. What else goes up? Customer issues, right? Start to have some customer issues come up, because the more customers you have, the more customer issues you have. That's just a fact. So an innovator will look at that and be like, okay, we've got some customer issues. We'll deal with that. But somebody at the company at some point, and it could have already happened to you, or it will happen very soon, will put process in place to deal with those customer issues. Process is the innovator's blind spot. They hate red tape. They don't want it. They'd stay away from it, avoid at all costs, right? Abort. I don't want any of that. Well, as customer issues grow and somebody puts process in place, what happens is the things that the innovator really, really cares about start to slow down a little bit, right? You only have the same number of people. It starts to slow down. So what do all great innovators do in that moment? They take a team and they say, come over here with me, and we're going to go get some shit done. That's what they say. But they carve them out from the other team. So two things are wrong with this. One, they totally disempowered the person that put process in place, because they took part of the team away. And two, they took a good part of the team away from dealing with customer issues. So when you do that, right, all of a sudden, you don't have as many people handling customer issues, not enough customer issues are getting solved. Then what happens? Somebody knocks on the door and says, we need to hire more people. And the innovator, you guys can tell me later at cocktail hour if this resonates with you, says, shakes their head, rolls their eyes, and says, what are we doing? We used to be able to do 2 to 3 times this much stuff. What's going on? Process is the innovator's blind spot. It sits back here. And they just don't want to deal with putting all of that in place. And so if they don't get in touch with that blind spot, then those beloved customers that they adored in the beginning start to leave. And if your competitor actually solves those customer issues, then you have a retention issue, a really big one, actually. You have a leaky bucket. And a leaky bucket, if you guys know that analogy, right? Lots of customers coming in, everybody falling out the bottom. That's the death of a startup. Your blind spot is the one thing you need to get in touch with because it is absolutely what's in the way of you and startup success. So how do you identify it? The good news is it's not that hard. I want everybody to close their eyes for a second and think about this. What is the one thing that you avoid doing at all costs? Think about it. What is the one thing you avoid doing at all costs? Maybe it's hiring somebody that everybody's been saying, look, we need this role, and you're like, we don't need that role yet. Maybe it's empowering a team that has a really great idea, but you kind of think, I don't think that makes sense. Why would we do that right now? What is the one thing that falls to the very, very bottom of your priority list? Because that's where you're going to find your blind spot. For me, my superpower is I'm a connector, okay? What the connector does is they help build reputation for companies. They love control, love it. Their blind spot is empowerment, empowering their teams. And I had this issue early in my career. I held the reins so tight that I just couldn't see anything around me. I took everything into my control. Here's the problem. Not only did I burn myself out, but I bred a culture of disempowerment across the whole team, distrust. And the worst part about that was I had all 4 superpowers on my team. I had somebody that was an innovator that deeply understood the customer. I had a builder who could basically build anything. They also did all of the analytics. It was the best thing that ever happened. Every superpower has a blind spot. For the innovator, it's process. For the builder, if you're a builder, it's about taking risks. The connector is about empowering their team, and the persuader is about being consistent. Those are blind spots that each of these superpowers have. But you'll see something here if you really dig in. A lot of times, the blind spot of one is the strength of the other. Okay? It takes all 4 superpowers to be successful in business. It's sort of like a house. These are the 4 pillars that keep the house standing. If you don't have one, the house falls down. So the innovator in this model, the innovator is the person that's going to help you have product market fit, right? That was the second thing on the list. The builder is going to help you ramp up. They're going to help scale your company. They're going to help hire the right people, put process in place. They're the ones that are going to also help you raise money, by the way. That was the first symptom of the startup failure. The connector is going to own your reputation. They're going to help you get known in the industry you serve. Your persuader is going to help you win thousands of customers. You need all 4 of these to be successful. Now, fast forward to today. I'm very proud that I got in touch with that blind spot. That's what I meant by it was the best thing that ever happened. I pulled it forward. It is actually now more of a superpower than a blind spot. I've done that over the course of the last decade or so. And if you ask people that have been on my team, I'm so humbled by the fact that they will tell me that I'm one of the best leaders that they've ever worked with. But I had to get in touch with my blind spot. These people on this screen, by the way, they might look familiar. I think that Steve was mentioning this before. The band is back together. You'll see Andy Moss on the left there in the black t-shirt. He was the CEO at Roadster. He is now the CEO at Mindtrip. Mindtrip is in the travel industry, so I'm no longer in automotive, but I am so excited to be here with my family from automotive. Rudy Toon, it's hard to see, I think, with the lights. On the right, also in a black shirt. I guess we are all almost in black shirts. Our COO, you know, he's the builder. Andy's the innovator. I'm the connector. It takes people to make it happen. And I want to point out a very important person, because I know we've got investors in this room. In the center of this picture is Greg Sands. He is one of the partners at Costa Nova Ventures. He invested in Roadster, and he's the lead investor in Mindtrip. He is part of our team. People are the cure to startup failure, okay? So I encourage everybody, if you take one thing away from my very short talk here today, go home thinking about what is your blind spot? What is that one thing that is in the way of your success? If you can get in touch with that and go hire and empower the right team, then you can hang your gambling shoes up and be part of the 10% that succeed. Thank you guys so much. This QR code for everybody, if you want to scan it, it goes to my website. My book comes out later this month. You can join the newsletter, and I'll let everybody know when it's here. But this was all based on the book. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Great information. Really appreciate it. Very succinct.